Hello and welcome to New Earth Awakening. Today we welcome Pooja Chilukuri. She is a published author and host of the Afterlife podcast, where she interviews those who have had near-death, shared death, afterlife, communications, or other spiritually transformative experiences. In her memoir, And Then There Was Jesus, Pooja shares her journey of deconstructing from religion, healing her spiritual wounds, and reconstructing her faith. Pooja, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Carolina.
So it's awesome having you here. We had a conversation on your podcast, and now I'm really happy to be able to feature you and to share your journey as well. So let's start right there, Pooja. Please share with the audience how your journey has been and has led you to the work you're doing today.
Thank you again, Carolina. I am honored to share my journey. My journey has been a very twisted way of arriving at a spiritual awakening. And I think it started in my childhood because I have been through two different religions. I grew up Hindu. And then when I was 19 years old, I decided that I wanted to be a Christian. So I will share a little bit of how my spiritual curiosity first started. And then it ended up in a religion and then religious trauma. And then from there, my spiritual awakening. As a child, I was always very spiritually curious about questions for life, right? Who are we? Why are we here? Why do people have to die? Things like that. But I didn't get any answers that satisfied me. Most people around me were very religious. And I think human beings, we learn by imitating others, right? Like when you're children, I think that's the primary way that we learn. And so what I learned is to look for answers in religion. For some time, it made me happy. You know, there were rituals we did. We had festivals in Hinduism. As you're aware, we have several of them. And the community and the tribe. So for some time, I was happy and I just followed everything. But it always bothered me that it was one way, right? I'm the one doing all these rituals. I'm the one trying to please these deities and these gods. Why can't I hear back? After a while, it started feeling like, is there anybody out there, you know? And so I would sit on my window. We had these big ledges. And I would sit there and try to talk to God, but I never felt like I heard anything. And after a while, I started noticing that the people around me that were doing these religious practices, they had fear. They had fear. So like if a protocol was not followed perfectly, then they were afraid that God's wrath would come or some bad karma would happen or something would harm them, right? So people were increasingly giving the power away to the priest and to the deities. And I thought, I don't want this. But I never really exited the religion. I just kind of distanced myself from all those things. I thought, okay, I'll just focus on my studies because I was just a teenager. And then when I was in high school, I was diagnosed. I wasn't diagnosed, actually. I came down with something that no one could diagnose. And it was a very massive illness, which lasted for 2 years. And to make a long story short, Carolina, we went to healing pilgrimages. We tried all the Hindu gods. We tried the Muslims had a pilgrimage we went for in India. Then there was like shaman. My dad knew a shaman. So he said, okay, we tried to clear this girl's energy. So he knew that. My dad knew that. But nothing worked. Nothing worked. And then one fine day, my dad's cousin suggested that send me to the USA because they're doing some cutting edge research there in North Carolina. Carolina, it's your name, right? And so it was in Duke University. So I ended up here, and then I never was able to reach the person. But however, my roommate started noticing that I wasn't well. So my symptoms were very, very difficult. Like I would throw up a lot. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I had wasted away. My parents took me to a psychiatrist, but they couldn't figure out either. They gave me like all these medications to make me sleepy, but I never slept. So nothing was healing me. And when they took me to this little church and the church leader asked me, do you believe that Jesus can heal you? I said yes, because when I was a child, I had seen a picture of a photo of Jesus and he was surrounded by like lepers. And I guess it's a story in the Bible, and they had gotten healed. And I thought, sure, I haven't tried this. And yeah, why not? And so I said yes, and that night, I fell asleep for the first time. And the next day when I woke up, my symptoms were gone, just gone. Like for 2 years, I suffered. So, it made me, I was 19 years old at this time. So it made me very curious that I want to follow this religion because I did not understand that spiritual part. I just thought that it's the religion or, like how you just change your religion, you change your God. Because in Hinduism, we have so many gods. So I thought, okay, Jesus, like one more God, you know. So, okay, I am happy to pursue this religion and find out more because I had gratitude. While I was doing that, I was also pursuing my Hindu practices at the same time. And remember, these are the practices which I had developed as fear-based, that I have to keep doing them to ward off like evil stuff, right? So one day, Carolina, I was reading from a prayer book which my dad had given me. And when I was chanting it, I heard a voice. And again, at this time, I'm about 19, 20 years old. This was the first time. Remember, I said that every time I never heard back. I never heard back. And this is the first time, and it was very difficult to describe it because it was not a voice like you and I. It's not like a voice, but it felt like I guess the best way to describe it would be a very loud thought that comes from outside of you and you know it. You feel the difference, And so there was something in there which I felt like I cannot remember the full exact words because it's been over 32 years and I don't want to make up something, but I remember how I felt. Like the gist was that I've been giving my power away to external things and, I needed to stop doing that. And I immediately, but my mind was not ready for that message. So what I thought is, oh, is this Jesus? And is he mad at me because I'm not reading a Christian book? That was my very, very low awareness, right? At this time, I don't know anything. And so I picked up the Bible. And I'm also wondering at this time, is this Jesus, right? Who is talking to me? So when I pick up the Bible, the first thing I see there is, my sheep hear my voice. That's the first thing. So, okay, I understood this is Jesus, So now what do? I don't know what to do. The only way I know to connect to God is through religion and through performance and through practice. That was my only understanding. So that's what I did. I did that for 17 years in a church where the leaders had prayed for me because I felt so obligated to them. They had taken the time to pray for me and to teach me the Christian way. But what ended up happening, Carolina, is that I never understood that message of Jesus. I kept giving my power away to the leaders in the church, the people. Now I'm not giving it away to these deities, but I gave it away to the leaders in the church, the people in the church. Very, very soon, before I realized, my whole life was in that controlled way, right? Whatever they wanted, however they interpreted the Bible, the doctrines they were teaching me. It took me a few years to figure out that I was not allowed to have. Nobody said it. It wasn't like they said, oh, you cannot have your own relationship with God. But every time I tried to express that, if it didn't fit into their mold, there was a very subtle kind of a rejection. And people need to belong, right? And I was afraid I didn't want to lose this community and my friends and everybody. So I kind of crushed the voice of Jesus and I decided that I'm just going to go deep into the religion and be the best Christian and go to church 5 times a week and pray 100 times a day and read my Bible from cover to cover because I was being fed that these things will make Jesus happy. Meanwhile, I was not communicating with Jesus for myself, right? I'm just believing. I went back to my ways, actually. As a child, I connected with God only through religion. So when these people were also very religious, it just doubled that resonance, right? I became even more religious. And then one day I realized that, my health broke down. I had become a Christian. That meant that I had to let go a lot of my Hindu family who we could not relate and connect anymore. So a lot of things I had to sacrifice. And one day I had a really feeling of regret, like, why did I become a Christian? It's made me sick. I don't hear from Jesus. I'm just continuously serving, losing who I am. Like I was very disconnected from myself in these days, Carolina. And so I got sick with reactive airways. I couldn't breathe. My husband got sick. We were both serving in the church full time, like a lot of work we were doing. So the burnout happened. And one day I was sitting in my closet, completely ready to become an atheist. Like I was crying. I said, there is no God. He does not listen, because again, we were taught that God is only a he, right? That was part of my religious training. And I just started crying and had a meltdown, like a nervous breakdown. And at this time, I felt something like electricity. Like I cannot describe this because it's not like shock. It's not an electric shock, but it was like super gentle. And the waves went through my body, like on my left side. And all of a sudden, I don't know what came over me, this warm comfort, love. I don't know, it just felt like my mom, and then I was just like, what is going on? What is this thing, And then I felt heat go through my legs. Then I said, is this Jesus? Because if it's you, because for some intuition was telling me this is Jesus. So I said, if this is you, then but the sign that I want is that heat has to go through my legs again, like that. And so over the next few days, that kept happening. So this was my first experience with such a deep mystical experience. When I tried to share this with the church people, they were not ready to accept it. Because for them, it could be a devil or an angel of light trying to deceive me or something like this. So the problem was that I was starting to experience Jesus as an entity of great kindness. And when I went to church, I was hearing messages like God's wrath or God's punishment, or if you don't obey, then such and such. And so very soon I realized I cannot keep going to this and have Jesus at home. The contrast was killing me, As long as I did not have the contrast, I could be fine. I can pretend whatever, right? But the contrast was killing me. And it made it much worse for me to stay in that group or in that church. So one day I was telling Jesus, I need a Bible verse because in my church, you had to have a Bible verse before every decision. And yes, it was really that strict. Like, if you're going to make a decision, can you find it in the Bible? Right. So they were a little bit like the fundamental approach to Bible. And Jesus gave it to me. And what I remember hearing one night before I was trying to sleep is, you cannot pour new wine in an old wineskin because the wineskin will burst and the wine will spill and the wine is wasted and the wineskin is ruined. So I knew he was telling me that a new spirit he was giving me, awakening me, and that the wineskin in this case was the church structure. And I had outgrown it. So if I stayed, not only would I hurt myself, I actually might hurt the church too, because they're not ready for this, right? So who knows what kind of conflict and division that would end up creating. So then the kindest and most correct thing to do was to leave. And so I left. And after that, you can leave something, but it doesn't leave you. So even though I was experiencing Jesus personally, my religious ways were not changing. Because it was so deep in my psyche, and I needed so many validations from Jesus. Like, I would feel guilty when I woke up on Sunday and I didn't go to church. And then he started interacting with me in a way that I cannot describe. I see him in dreams, like come like a wind. I feel him like a fire. Sometimes one time I was sitting by my fireplace in the winter and I felt the ocean. Like, it was like, I cannot explain. It's a very immersive experience, and I don't have words, unfortunately. But over the years, he showed me that my mind was still in darkness, even though my soul was, feeling all this. So one thing I started doing was I slowly started sharing because I was afraid that people will judge me. And one time I shared with someone that was in my nutrition program because this was also the time that I decided I would make a change in my life and my career. And I was studying to be a nutritionist and a health coach. And she heard my story and she said, Pooja, you need to listen to this woman's story who had a near-death experience. Because your mystical experience and her experience sound the same, and she died and went on the other side. And I started listening to those stories, and very soon I realized, oh my God, Some of these people have seen Jesus and he appears to them just like he appears to me, but I am not died. I have seen it in my dream or, felt it in my closet. So I was like, what is going on with me? So I started looking for answers. And that's how I discovered the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Also, they have, a lot of people are trying to bridge the gap between science and spirit and trying to explain these things. And looking for answers led me to my podcast. I started interviewing people that had died, been on the other side. So I hope it was not too long, but this is my story.
Amazing. Pooja, thanks for sharing that. It's really fascinating to hear you. It is a mix of, I don't know, everything kind of, it's a mix of happiness, joy, finding yourself, spiritual awakening, and diving out of the fear, emerging up into the light, hand in hand with Jesus. So thank you very much for sharing that. And I haven't heard anybody share that there are religious circles that require you to find your decision within the Bible before you can move forward. That was like really wow to me. So thanks. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Once you had decided that you wanted to help other people as well with their health, because you knew how important that could be for a human being, how did you approach this and also tie it again with the emergence of Jesus into your life?
Absolutely, Carolina. So I feel very fortunate because I have experienced mystical healings in my body, right? The first time when I was 19 years old. And then, when I left, I had a lot of emotional and spiritual trauma, religious trauma. And over the years, just being with Jesus, and he showed me all these different modalities. Like, that's the thing about it, right? He's just not like this spiritual being. He's very much plugged into the reality that we live in. That means your doctors, that means your nutritionists, that means any other modalities that are helping people, neuroscience. So I became very curious and I started studying on these things because both me and my husband had gotten sick in church. And I remember, Carolina, I used to pray to Jesus every day. You healed me. Why can't you heal my husband? And why can't you heal me from all these emotional stuff? And one day I was praying and I heard it was really simple, 3 words, and it said, you do it, you do it. And I was like, what? You've been healing me all this time. And now you want me to do it? That was just so profound for me. Like it didn't even occur to me. And then I was like, well, how do I do this? And slowly, as my life went on, it unfolded in very synchronous ways. I ended up doing a nutrition program because I felt that he was showing me that my body was sick because I had not taken care of what I was putting inside. And my mind was sick because, again, junk stuff, junk programming was in there. It was a very long journey for me. And when I was in that journey, Carolina, when I was studying, I met so many people with health challenges. It broke my heart. And that's when I knew that it's just not just for me. I have to take this to other people. And that's when the idea came that I should. One-on-one consulting is you only reach a few people, but when you're teaching classes, you can reach many people. And so I think I've been doing this since 2014, so it's been 11 years. And it's given me so much joy to see people's eyes just light up because all I'm doing is sharing information. I'm not really here to be the magical healer for them, but they are the ones who connect the dots therefore, right? And so sometimes if you go online and you try to look for answers, especially in this world of AI and ChatGPT and whatnot, you'll get a lot of answers. But sometimes when you work with a coach, they can help you to figure out your own connect the dots instead of this impersonal list. So I wanted to be a channel of healing. Prayed, Carolina, I really prayed for a long time if I wish I had the gift of healing because some people have that. They can touch people and they get healed. But somehow God, Jesus did not, he had another way. He wanted me to study and he wanted me to gain all this knowledge. And it's been fun, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Pooja. So Let's dive a little bit deeper into how you have been deconstructing those belief systems and how it has transformed throughout the time.
Absolutely. So deconstruction, this word was not in my vocabulary until 2 years ago. So I did not even know that I was deconstructing. I just knew that I had all these beliefs that I was clinging to, and they were harming my health. They were harming my mental health. So, after I left that church, I tried to go to another one, thinking, oh, because they teach differently. So I thought, okay, that'll be fine. Experience Jesus there. But when I went to the parking lot, my heart rate would go up. I had an anxiety attack, a panic attack. So I did not realize that I had trauma. This is something I want to share because a lot of people, we think of trauma as, oh, you had a big fire happened or a big accident happened or a divorce happened or some big thing happened and that triggered your trauma. But for me, it wasn't one event. It was years and years of harmful stuff that I was listening and believing that created so much anxiety that I didn't even know. And after this is in 2011, 2012, no clue that I had trauma. I had no clue that I had religious trauma because even that word did not exist until 10 years ago. So what do I do now? So my instincts were just saying that if you're going to change your mind, you have to start reading other things and exploring other avenues. I started reading some books by people that had left the church. They were trying to heal and reframe some of the teachings. So that started my deconstruction process. And slowly over time, I started, with neuroscience, learning how to rewire the brain. And you have to practice, practice, practice. That's the best way to rewire it, So every time I would get triggered with some old belief, I would go find books that had the reframed version of it. Like, for example, there's a book called The Universal Christ. It's by a priest called Richard Rohr. So every time I had this old belief that God is going to send people to hell, I would start reading his book out loud, where he explains how universal Jesus is. And he is going to accept and welcome every human being from every religion. So, I was using intuition for a long time. And then when I discovered these near-death experience stories, that was the end of it for me because I started binging on those. And boy, did I discover that I had nothing to fear. No judgment, no heaven or hell, no punishment, unconditional love. So that was the thing that finally deconstructed me and healed me. Because atheists were seeing Jesus. And I thought, okay, that's not something my church would have taught, So over time, we deprogram.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And it's, I like how you share this because it can really, you cannot deconstruct years and years and years of programming and fear-based constructs in like one day or something, It's like, yeah, it may be possible, there is quantum healing, all of that, yeah. But let's say it is also good to be aware that you need to put your thing to work. You need to put the work into it. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
So what are the health challenges that you encounter mostly in the world when you teach your courses?
Yes. So mostly what I've seen is autoimmune diseases is on the rise. We've always had like the blood pressure, the heart disease, the diabetes, obesity. We've had these things and I feel like everywhere I look now, people younger and younger are getting sick. Diseases that I never thought I would ever get or experience until we were in our 70s or 60s. My husband was only 30 years old when he developed 2 different autoimmune disorders. And my reactive airways, that was back in 2006, and I was pretty young. And, that they said that's a kind of autoimmune as well. Autoimmune is something I see very much on the rise. And it's very, very challenging for those who are living with it. Because I feel like, with the very known diseases like diabetes and all those things, you have a very cut out protocol. There's a lot of medications and protocols. Autoimmune, people still don't understand it fully. There's a lot of work being done in the holistic health field regarding this. And I know even in the mainstream medicine, they have these biologic drugs, but I don't think people understand the root of it completely. So I see that a lot. Yeah.
What would you say is likely a route that can lead to this?
For me, when I teach, I always say, okay, I agree that genetics is very much a factor, but stress, we have normalized stress in the most horrifying manner. I'm horrified, actually. If you're not working 60 hours a week, your self-worth, like what are we teaching as a culture and as a society? People feel guilty to take breaks. And add to that the toxins we've put into our environment. The Environmental Protection Agency in the US, I think they have said there's over 83,000 chemicals that are man-made that's in our water and soil and air. Can you imagine that? Like, I don't think that God and Source designed our bodies for this. I think our bodies are doing a great job of trying to keep up, all this assault. I think it's a miracle that more of us are not sick, and stress is terrible, terrible, yeah. And the fact that we celebrate it and normalize it.
Yes, Pooja, I very much agree with you. Stress is one of the factors that is really not healthy at all.
Yeah, no. And feeling guilty for taking time off, for taking a break, for relaxing, that's the worst thing we can do for our health.
Yeah, sometimes stress is like an honor badge. Oh, my
Yes.
job is so important. I'm such an important manager or whatever that I have such a stressful environment.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that as well, because I think awareness is the first thing and the ultimate thing. Once you become aware of those kind of things, then you can start redirecting,
Absolutely.
So, Pooja, are there any parting messages that you want to share with the audience about the work that you are doing and how they can find you?
Absolutely. My website, www.poojachilukuri.com. And on there, I have a page of resources. It's completely free. I'm not selling anything. So if you just go in there and you will find a ton of resources, especially if you're someone that's healing from religious trauma. I didn't have any of that. I've been collecting these for 15 years. And if somebody is experiencing discomfort in their religion or anxiety when they go to church or whatever religion, it doesn't have to be Christianity, then I would encourage you to please go on there and find the resources. I have links to counselors and therapists also and other podcasts that can help. And and then the work I'm doing, well, I just want to be a vessel for life and healing. Like I said, I don't have any powers of healing. I don't practice any healing modalities, but, I just want people to find the information and connect their dots, do your research, and bring some changes in your life, And always never forget that one more thing I forgot to mention, Carolina, autoimmune diseases, another thing I believe the root cause is we're losing ourselves and our souls. We're not taking the time because maybe we don't have the time. People are struggling to just fight all these battles, whether it's your survival, your job, whatever it is. And sometimes I feel it's a luxury if I get 15 minutes to meditate in a day. But we have to be very intentional about taking care of our soul, whatever that looks like for you, because that will drive your body to health. And so being authentic, because if you're not, trust me, your body will hold that energy and convert it into something you don't want. So, and not to make fear. I'm not trying to put fear mongering. I'm just encouraging those who are listening and watching to just be yourself. Take time for what makes you happy.
That's beautiful. The last question would be, Pooja, what is your highest vision for this new earth we're co-creating right now?
Wow. Oh, my highest vision is for joy, peace, love, that all these things become a priority. I want to, in my vision of the new earth, priorities have changed. Nobody's grabbing power because everybody is powerful and they're increasing each other's power. So nobody's threatened. Nobody's in competition, right? We're raising it together and it's going to help all of us, all of us. We're one. In the end, we are. our separations help us to have relationships. I've always said, yes, we are one, but being separated is great too. That way I can have a relationship with you. So that's my vision, is this place where humans understand what power truly is, and that we're going to increase each other's power, and that joy should just increase and have.
That's beautiful, Pooja. So I want to thank you for being a guest on the New Earth Awakening podcast, and I send you all of my love.
Thank you so much, Carolina. Thank you for having me.